I stood in the shadows of the opulent ballroom, my simple black dress fading into the background as my mom's voice cut through the murmur of the gala. "She's just a temp," she said, dismissing me with a flick of her wrist, her smile dazzling for the guests. I was 24, the overlooked daughter, my heart splintering under the weight of her words. My name is Ava Reynolds, and this is the story of how I transformed that pain into a blaze that illuminated my world, stepping onto the stage to claim my title as CEO. Let me take you back to the beginning, to a quaint Connecticut town, where I grew up, where love was a spotlight that always missed me. I was the youngest of 3, raised in Westport, a place of manicured lawns, charity galas, and neighbors who measured your worth by your status. My dad, Thomas, was a corporate lawyer, all charisma and tailored suits, while my mom, Catherine, ruled the social scene, her charm a currency at fundraisers and club events. My older siblings, Claire and Nathan, were their shining stars. Claire, a med student destined for greatness. Nathan, a finance prodigy, interning at Goldman Sachs. Me, I was the quiet one, lost in sci-fi books or coding experiments, never quite fitting into their polished world. I wasn't unloved, but I was invisible, my efforts a whisper against their triumphs. By high school, the divide was stark. Claire's debate awards gleamed in the entryway. Nathan's lacrosse trophies adorned Dad's office, my coding prizes. They stayed hidden in my bedroom drawer, like secrets I wasn't allowed to share. At 16, I won a state hackathon with an app to track local food donations, my heart swelling with pride. I pictured Mom displaying the certificate, Dad boasting to his colleagues. Instead, Mom gave a curt, "That's nice, Ava," before gushing about Claire's MCAT prep. Dad patted my shoulders, saying, "Focus on something real, kid. Tech's not your path." I'd nod, choke back the hurt, and escape to my laptop coding until dawn, dreaming of a place where I'd be noticed. School was my haven. I wasn't one of the cool kids, too nerdy, too plain in my second-hand clothes, but I was brilliant, acing honors classes and running the computer club. My teacher, Mr. Larson, saw my potential, giving me books on programming and saying, "You're gifted, Ava. Own it." I built another app, a tutoring platform for underserved kids, which earned me a full scholarship to NYU for computer science. I thought it would be my breakthrough, Mom framing the award, Dad bragging at the club. Instead, they skipped the ceremony. Nathan had a big interview that day, and family first meant him. I stood on that stage at 17, clutching my plaque to scattered claps, searching for faces that weren't there. At home, Mom said, "We're proud, sweetie, but Nathan's got a real future." Dad added, "You'll get it someday. He's the one to watch." That was the first deep cut, the kind that burrows into your core. I started to believe I was a ghost in my own family, unseen, unimportant. I'd lie awake, my laptop's glow, my only companion wondering what I lacked. Was I too shy, not driven enough? Not Claire or Nathan. I'd trace the edges of my NYU scholarship letter, promising a fresh start and vow that college would change everything. I'd prove them wrong. I'd make them see me. NYU was my chance to rewrite the story. I moved to Manhattan, my dorm, a cramped space, filled with dreams and thrift store finds. The city was alive, a whirlwind of opportunity where no one knew my siblings. I excelled in my courses, mastering algorithms and winning hackathons. I found friends, true ones like Priya, who loved my sarcasm, and Sam, who'd code with me over late-night pizza. But the wound didn't heal. Phone calls home were short. Mom's tone distracted Dad, asking about Nathan's Wall Street rise. They visited once in 4 years for Claire's med school milestone, not for me. I'd send them my projects, a predictive model, a startup pitch win, and get, "That's nice, Ava," Claire's residency placement. That sparked a family party and a group chat that hummed for days. By my senior year, I was drained. I'd given everything to my degree, my projects, my hope. I was graduating with honors, had offers from top tech firms, and was secretly building ConnectSphere, a platform to connect nonprofits with volunteers. It was my passion coded in sleepless nights, a vision to change lives. I invited my parents to graduation, practically pleading in my email. "This is everything to me," I wrote. "Please be there." They swore they'd come for me and Nathan, who was getting his MBA at Columbia that same weekend. Graduation day was bright, the May air buzzing with excitement. I stood in my cap and gown, heart pounding, scanning the crowd. I saw them, Mom in her chic dress, Dad fussing with his tie, cheering as Nathan crossed the stage. My turn came an hour later. I walked my name ringing out summa cum laude. I searched for them, my eyes burning. They weren't there, lost in Nathan's moment. I found them later outside, laughing with his colleagues. Mom gave me a quick hug, saying, "Oh, Ava, we got caught up." Dad looked me over, his smile faint. "You did okay, kid, but tech's just a side thing, not a legacy." The words were a punch. A side thing I'd built a future, and that's what they saw. I muttered something, my throat tight, and walked away. That night in my dorm, I sobbed until my ribs ached. Priya found me, brought me chamomile tea, and sat as I poured out years of being overshadowed. "They think I'm nothing," I told her, voice cracking. "Just a temp in their perfect story." She held me and said, "Then show them you're the main character. Not for them, for you." That moment shattered me, but it also sparked something new. I was done begging for their love. I packed my bags, moved to Brooklyn with Priya, and dove into ConnectSphere. I didn't know it then, but their rejection was the fuel. It burned, but it pushed me forward. I was 22, heartbroken, and determined to build something so undeniable they'd have no choice but to see me, not just my family, but everyone who'd looked past me. The first months in Brooklyn were raw. Our apartment was tiny with creaky floors and a view of a brick wall, but it was ours. I freelanced for startups, fixing bugs and building apps, scraping together rent, while pouring every spare hour into ConnectSphere. I'd code until my eyes blurred, driven by coffee and a quiet fury. I didn't talk to my parents. Mom sent a few texts, vague, "how's it going" messages, but I'd reply with emojis, keeping them at arm's length. Nathan was climbing the finance ladder, Claire was saving lives, and I was done competing for scraps of their attention. Priya was my lifeline, blasting music during our late-night coding sessions and leaving sticky notes with silly doodles on my laptop. One night, as we ate ramen on our sagging couch, she asked, "Why do you push so hard to prove them wrong?" I didn't have an answer, just a knot in my chest. It wasn't just about them, it was about silencing the voice that said I'd never matter. I was building ConnectSphere, but I was also building myself, line by line, code by code. Then I met Elena. She ran a nonprofit down the street, a community center for kids. And I'd work from her office, sometimes my laptop, on a wobbly desk. Elena was in her 50s with a warm laugh and a knack for seeing people. She'd bring me coffee and ask about my platform, genuinely curious. When I demoed ConnectSphere, her eyes lit up. "This could help us find volunteers," she said. She became my first user, her feedback sharpening the platform. Elena was more than a tester. She was a mentor, saying, "Ava, you're changing lives. Don't let anyone dim that." Her belief was a spark, igniting something I hadn't felt in years, hope. Elena's center was proof ConnectSphere worked, and I started pitching to other nonprofits, shelters, food banks, youth programs. Most said no, but a few signed up their input, making the platform better. I was still broke, still hurting, but I was moving. Every line of code, every new user, was a step towards something bigger. I wasn't just chasing a dream, I was chasing myself. The Ava who'd been told she was just a temp, but knew she was so much more. The early days in Brooklyn were a grind, a mix of stubborn hope and raw determination. I was 22, sharing a cramped apartment with Priya, my life a patchwork of freelance coding gigs and late-night sprints on ConnectSphere, my nonprofit volunteer platform. My mom's words at graduation text, "just a side thing, not a legacy," still echoed a wound that fueled me as much as it hurt. I'd been dismissed as the invisible sibling, overshadowed by Claire's medical brilliance and Nathan's Wall Street rise. But I was done chasing my family's approval. With Priya's fierce friendship and Elena's mentorship, I was building something real, not just for them to see, but for me to believe in. I was Ava Reynolds, and I was carving my own path, one line of code at a time. Our Brooklyn apartment was a shoebox with peeling paint and a radiator that clanked like it was auditioning for a band. We'd joke about our luxury life, eating instant noodles while dreaming of real furniture. I freelanced for tech startups, fixing bugs, and building websites which covered rent barely. Every extra dollar went to ConnectSphere Server Costs Design Tools, a cheap online marketing course. I'd code until my fingers cramped, fueled by coffee and a quiet rage. I didn't talk to my parents. Mom's texts were sporadic, generic. "How are you?" messages, and I'd reply with one-word answers. Dad was silent, Nathan busy with his MBA, Claire with her residency. I wasn't sure if I was cutting them off or protecting myself, but the distance let me focus. Priya was my anchor. She'd blast pop anthems during our coding marathons, leave notes on my laptop, saying, "You're a coding queen," and drag me out for bodega sandwiches when I forgot to eat. One night, as we sprawled on our thrift store couch, she asked, "Why do you care so much about proving them wrong?" I paused, the question hitting deep. "It's not just them," I said finally. "It's me. I need to know I'm not what they think." She nodded, her eyes soft, and handed me a beer. "You're already more," she said. Her belief was a lifeline pulling me through the doubt. Elena was my guiding light. Her community center, a bustling hub for Brooklyn kids, was ConnectSphere's first user, and her feedback was gold, practical, sharp, making the platform better. She'd sit with me in her cluttered office, kids' drawings on the walls, and talk about my vision. "You're not just building tech, Ava," she'd say. "You're building bridges." She introduced me to other nonprofit leaders, and slowly users trickled in. A women's shelter, a food pantry, a literacy program. By the end of my first year in Brooklyn, I had 10 organizations on the platform. It wasn't much, but it was proof I was onto something. I'd lie awake not from fear now, but from excitement. What if this could grow? What if I could make it bigger than Claire's scalpel or Nathan's deals? The grind was relentless, though. Freelancing left me drained, and pitching ConnectSphere was a slog. I'd cold call nonprofits, tailoring emails until my eyes blurred, only to get voicemails or polite rejections. I'd walk Brooklyn streets, my sneakers pounding the pavement, and feel the weight of it all. Was I crazy to think I could compete with my siblings' paths? But then I'd think of Elena's kids, how my platform helped find volunteers for their after-school program or Priya's sticky notes, and I'd keep going. I wasn't just coding, I was fighting for myself, for the Ava I'd always been, but never seen. Then came the first real setback. I'd pitched ConnectSphere to a big Manhattan nonprofit, a youth mentorship group with citywide reach. I spent weeks preparing, practicing my demo with Priya until she could recite it. The meeting felt promising. The director nodded, asked questions, promised to follow up. A week later, an email were going with a more established platform. My stomach sank. I'd poured my soul into that pitch, believing it was my break. I sat on my bed, staring at the rejection, and felt the old doubts creep in. Maybe Mom was right. Maybe I was just a temp playing at something I'd never master. Priya found me crying and didn't say a word, just handed me a slice of pizza and sat beside me. After a while, she said, "They're scared of new. You're not done, Ava. You're just starting." Her words didn't erase the sting, but they reminded me I wasn't alone. Elena echoed her the next day, slamming a tray of cookies on her desk. "You think I built this center without doors shutting? Keep pushing, kid." Their faith was a mirror, showing me a resilience I didn't always feel. I took the nonprofit's feedback and improved ConnectSphere, adding features like real-time chat and volunteer tracking. I started pitching outside New York, Boston, Philly, D.C., spending hours researching directors and crafting emails. Most ignored me, but a few listened. A D.C. food bank signed up, then a Boston youth center. Each win felt like a brick in a foundation I was laying, one I could stand on. By my second year, ConnectSphere had 30 users, enough to cover costs and hire a part-time developer, a college kid named Leo who worked for cheap and believed in the mission. He moved into our orbit, crashing on our couch for late-night coding sessions, his humor a spark in our grind. With Leo's help, the platform got sleeker, mobile-friendly with analytics dashboards nonprofits loved. We hit 50 users, including a small chain of shelters in Philly. I was still freelancing, still broke, but I was building. Every new user was a defiance of the voice that called me a temp. The loneliness crept in, though. I'd see families at Elena's center, parents cheering at kids' events, and feel a pang for what I'd lost. I missed Mom's rare hugs, Dad's goofy stories from his law days. I even missed Nathan and Claire, who used to sneak me ice cream as kids. I'd scroll their social media sometimes, Nathan's engagement photos, Claire's hospital awards, and feel like I was watching a life I'd been cut from. I wanted to reach out, but the memory of graduation stopped me. They'd chosen their stars, and I wasn't one. I needed to be my own. Elena saw through my brave face. One afternoon, as I helped her sort donated books, she said, "You're carrying too much, Ava. You don't have to prove anything to them." I didn't know how to respond. Was I proving it to them or to myself? Her words lingered like a seed taking root. I started journaling, something I hadn't done since high school. I'd write about the hurt, the rejections, but also the wins. The new users, the late-night breakthroughs. It was like talking to myself, and slowly I started to like the Ava I heard. Then came a turning point. I got an email from a Brooklyn tech incubator inviting me to apply for their startup program. They'd seen ConnectSphere on a nonprofit blog and wanted to meet. My hands shook as I read it. This wasn't just another user, it was a chance to scale, to go from scrappy to serious. I spent days on the application, pouring my story into it. The overlooked kid, the graduation snub, the platform built from grit. Priya and Elena proofread it, cheering me on. When I hit submit, I felt like I'd sent a piece of my heart into the world. Weeks later, I got the call I was accepted. The incubator offered mentorship, a $10,000 grant, and a desk in their co-working space. I'd have to quit freelancing, a risk that terrified me, but Priya wouldn't let me hesitate. "This is your shot," she said, packing my laptop like it was her mission. Elena baked me a cake with "Go Change the World" in messy icing. I hugged them, tears in my eyes, and moved into the incubator's sleek office. My laptop and a notebook, my only baggage. I was 23, scared and electrified. ConnectSphere wasn't just a project anymore. It was a mission I could touch. And for the first time, I felt like I was running towards something, not away from my family's shadow. The incubator was a new world. I was surrounded by founders, mostly older, mostly men who tossed around terms like disruption and exit strategy with ease. I felt out of place, my jeans and sneakers stark against their tailored blazers. But when I demoed ConnectSphere, they listened. My mentor, a woman named Rachel, saw my fire. "You've got heart," she said. "That's rarer than code." She pushed me to think bigger, to pitch to investors, to dream beyond nonprofits. I was nervous, but I was learning, and every step felt like a rebellion against the voice that said just a temp. Have you ever felt like the world wrote you off, but you kept rewriting the story? I was doing that line by line, and I was just getting started. The incubator in Brooklyn was a whirlwind, a place where dreams collided with deadlines and ambition hummed in the air. I was 23, working in a sleek co-working space, filled with founders chasing unicorns. My own ConnectSphere, a platform linking nonprofits with volunteers, starting to take shape. My mom's dismissal at my NYU graduation text, just a side thing, not a legacy, still burned a wound that drove me to prove I was more than the invisible sibling, overshadowed by Claire's medical triumphs and Nathan's Wall Street ascent. With Priya's fierce friendship and Elena's mentorship, I was building not just a startup, but a version of myself I could believe in. I was Ava Reynolds, and I was ready to make my mark even if my family couldn't see it yet. The incubator's energy was electric laptops clacking, whiteboards scrawled with ideas, coffee cups stacked like trophies. I was the youngest there, and one of few women, my thrift store hoodie, a stark contrast to the founders' tailored looks. Their jargon pivot burn rate Series A felt like a foreign language, and I'd scribble notes to decode later, my imposter syndrome roaring. But when I pitched ConnectSphere at our first demo session, something shifted. I stood voice shaky and showed how it helped Elena's community center find volunteers, how a DC food bank streamlined its outreach. I shared the numbers: 60 users, 25%, month-over-month growth. The room went quiet, then my mentor Rachel clapped. "That's a mission investors will love," she said, and I felt a spark of belonging. Rachel was a force late 40s with a sharp mind and a knack for cutting through fluff. She'd sold her own startup and now guided founders like me. Over coffee, she'd challenge my vision, my metrics, my fears. "You're not just selling software," she told me. "You're selling impact. Own it." She pushed me to refine my pitch, to think beyond small nonprofits, to national organizations, even corporations with CSR budgets. The idea scared me. ConnectSphere was still a scrappy operation run from my laptop, but her confidence was contagious. I started to see a future where my platform wasn't just helping a few groups, but changing how communities connected. The incubator gave me tools I'd never had access to: developers, marketing gurus, and a $10,000 grant that let me hire Leo full-time. He moved to Brooklyn, sharing our apartment's couch, and we'd code late, laughing over bugs, and dreaming up features. Leo was a genius, his optimism a balm for my stress. And with him on board, ConnectSphere got sharper. Sleeker UI volunteer gamification. Even a basic AI to match skills. Nonprofits loved it, and our user count climbed to 90, then 120. I quit freelancing, living off the grant, and ramen every dollar poured back into the platform. It was terrifying, but I was all in. The program's goal was Demo Day, 6 months away, where we'd pitch to investors and tech scouts. A strong pitch could mean funding partnerships, a real shot at scaling. A weak one could stall everything. I'd lie awake my journal, open wrestling with doubts. What if I failed? What if my family was right and I was just a temp dreaming too big? I'd reread my entries, the pain of graduation. Elena's kids, Priya's notes, reminding myself why I was here. I wasn't chasing their approval anymore. I was chasing my own. I stayed close to Priya and Elena, their voices grounding me. Priya, now working at a marketing agency, sent playlists labeled "kick-ass coding" and called to rant about her boss keeping me laughing. Elena mailed care packages, cookies, handwritten notes, a tiny keychain shaped like a bridge. For my bridge builder, she wrote, "Their faith kept me steady, but my family's absence was a quiet ache. I hadn't spoken to my parents in over a year. Mom's texts had stopped, Dad never reached out. Nathan sent a congrats text about the incubator, but it felt like a formality. I'd scroll their social media, Claire's engagement announcement, Nathan's MBA graduation, and feel like an outsider in their perfect story. I wanted to be past it, but the kid in me still craved their pride. Rachel saw my distraction. After a pitch rehearsal where I fumbled, she pulled me aside. "What's holding you back, Ava?" she asked. I hesitated, then spilled it the graduation snub, the years of being second-tier mom's side thing jab. She listened, her face calm, then said, "You're carrying their weight. Drop it. Your success is about you, not them." Her words hit like a truth I'd been dodging. I didn't need their validation to be enough. I needed my own. I threw myself into demo day prep with a new fire. Rachel drilled my pitch until it was razor sharp. Leo and I polished the platform, adding a demo mode for investors. I started networking, terrifying but necessary, attending startup mixers and shaking hands with strangers. Most were dismissive, another app, another dreamer. But a few took my card, including a VC named Sarah, who said, "Let's talk after your pitch." As demo day neared, we hit a milestone. ConnectSphere reached 200 users, including a national literacy nonprofit. Their director raved about the platform in a trade newsletter, calling it a game changer for volunteer engagement. Rachel sent me the article saying, "This is your ammo." I taped it to my wall, reading it when doubt crept in. I was still scared, still fighting the voice that said I wasn't enough, but I was louder now. The night before demo day, I called Elena. I was a mess pacing our apartment, my pitch script crumpled in my hand. "What if I choke?" I asked. She laughed, that warm sound I loved. "Ava, you've already won. You built this from nothing. Shine tomorrow." I cried after we hung up, not from fear, but from gratitude. Elena, Priya, Leo, Rachel. They were my family now, the ones who saw me. Demo day was a blur of adrenaline and nerves. The venue was a chic Manhattan loft packed with investors in sharp suits and founders buzzing with hope. I wore a blazer borrowed from Priya, my hands sweaty as I waited backstage. The other pitches were slick AI startups, fintech apps, million-dollar asks. I felt small, my nonprofit focus out of place. But when my name was called, I stepped into the spotlight, heart hammering. "I'm Ava Reynolds," I began, and I built ConnectSphere to bridge communities. Because I know what it's like to feel disconnected. I told Elena's story, the DC food bank's my own, not the details of my family, but the drive to prove myself. I showed the numbers, 200 users, 30% growth, the newsletter quote. I ended with ConnectSphere isn't just tech, it's people coming together to change lives. The applause was loud, real. I walked off stage, legs shaking, and Rachel hugged me. "You killed it," she whispered. "Sarah, the VC, found me, later saying I want to lead your round." 2 other investors asked for meetings. I was dizzy, barely processing. That night, Leo, Priya, and I celebrated with cheap wine in our apartment, toasting the little platform that could. I felt like I was flying, like the girl who'd cried at graduation was a distant memory. But the real test loomed. A month later, I got an invite to speak at a major Tech for Good conference in San Francisco, one of the biggest in the industry. It was the same weekend as my parents' annual charity gala in Westport. A glittering event Mom had mentioned in a rare text, assuming I'd attend. I hadn't been home in years, hadn't faced them since graduation. The conference was my chance to shine, to put ConnectSphere on the map. The gala was a pullback to the past, to the family that saw me as just a temp. I stared at the conference email, my thumb hovering over accept, and felt the weight of a choice. San Francisco was my future. Westport was my wound. I chose the conference. I typed the acceptance email, hands trembling, and called Priya. "I'm doing it," I said. "Not the gala," she screamed. "That's my Ava." Elena sent a voice memo. "You're gonna light up that stage, kid." Their excitement carried me, but at night alone, I wondered if I'd made the right call. Skipping the gala wasn't just logistics, it was a declaration. I was choosing myself, and it felt both freeing and terrifying. Have you ever had to choose between who you were and who you're becoming? I was standing at that crossroads, my platform, growing, my heart racing, ready to rewrite my story. The decision to choose the San Francisco conference over my parents' charity gala felt like cutting a tether, both liberating and disorienting. I was 23, living in Brooklyn, pouring my soul into ConnectSphere, the nonprofit volunteer platform that was starting to make waves. My mom's dismissal at my NYU graduation text, just a side thing, not a legacy, had left a scar that drove me to prove I was more than the overlooked sibling eclipsed by Claire's medical stardom and Nathan's Wall Street climb. With Priya's fierce friendship, Elena's mentorship, and Rachel's guidance at the incubator, I was building a life that was mine, not theirs. ConnectSphere had 200 users, a demo day triumph, and investor interest, and I was Ava Reynolds, ready to step into the spotlight, even if my family couldn't see it. San Francisco was a new frontier. The Tech for Good conference was massive, with thousands of attendees, live-streamed talks, and media from Wired to Forbes. My keynote, Connecting Communities, Tech for Impact, was a chance to showcase ConnectSphere and my story. I spent weeks crafting it, Rachel coaching me to blend data with heart. "Tell them why this matters to you," she said. So I wove in Elena's community center, the DC food bank, and my own drive, not the family details, but the hunger to prove myself. Leo polished the platform's demo, adding a sleek dashboard to wow the crowd. Priya helped me practice filming me in our apartment until my delivery was smooth. "You're a rock star," she said, grinning. I was nervous but electrified, ready to take the stage. ConnectSphere was growing fast. The demo day buzz had landed us 3 angel investors, a $500,000 seed round that let us hire a small team, Leo as lead developer, a marketing whiz named Tara, and a part-time designer, Aisha. We moved into a tiny Brooklyn office, a converted loft with creaky floors and a coffee maker we worshipped. Tara's campaigns turned user stories into viral posts. Elena's center featured in one that got 10,000 shares. We hit 300 users, including a national mentoring nonprofit. Their CEO calling me a visionary. I was still pinching myself, living off savings and instant coffee, but we were scaling the platform's impact, spreading like ripples. The team was my heartbeat. Leo's jokes kept us sane through deadlines. Aisha's designs gave the platform soul, and Tara's energy lit up our loft. We'd celebrate milestones: 250 users, our first corporate partner with pizza and bad dance moves. They weren't just colleagues, they were family, seeing me in ways my parents never had. But the ache lingered. I hadn't spoken to my family in months. Mom's text about the gala went unanswered. Dad was a ghost, and Nathan's congrats on the incubator felt like a checkbox. I'd see Claire's hospital posts or Nathan's finance awards online and feel like I was peering into a life I'd been erased from. I wanted to be over it, but the kid in me still hoped they'd notice. Elena kept me grounded. I'd visit her center, helping with kids' coding classes, and she'd sense my mood. "You're not living for their applause, Ava," she'd say, handing me a cookie. "You're living for yours." I'd nod, her bridge keychain in my pocket, but the hurt was there. I journaled to process it, filling pages with the pain of being just a temp, the thrill of new users, the dream of making ConnectSphere global. Writing showed me the Ava I was becoming: resilient, driven, not the girl who'd cried at graduation. I was learning to love her, and that was a quiet revolution. San Francisco was a dream. The conference was in a gleaming convention center, all glass and tech buzz, with founders and philanthropists in every corner. I arrived early, my suitcase packed with Priya's blazer and new shoes I'd splurged on. Backstage, I paced my note cards, worn from clutching them. The other speakers were giants, CEOs, activists, a woman who'd advised the UN. I felt like a kid sneaking into a VIP room. But Elena's text, "Shine Kid," and Priya's voice memo, "You're gonna slay," were armor. Rachel flew in her presence, steadying me. "This is your moment," she said, and I believed her. When my name was called, I stepped onto the stage, the lights blinding the crowd, a sea of faces. I took a breath and started. "I'm Ava Reynolds, and I built ConnectSphere because I know what it's like to feel unseen." I told Elena's story, the mentoring nonprofits my own, not the family wounds, but the drive to connect others. I showed the platform's impact: 350 users. Now 40% growth stories of volunteers changing lives. My voice grew strong, the nerves fading. I ended with, "This isn't just tech, it's a promise no one gets left behind." The applause was thunderous, a standing ovation. I walked off stage, legs jelly, and Rachel grabbed me in a hug. "You owned it," she said. Priya, watching the livestream, texted a string of heart emojis. Elena called, crying, "That's my girl." The conference was a launch pad. My keynote went viral, racking up 500,000 views online. Investors swarmed. Sarah, the VC from Demo Day, led a $2 million seed round, with 2 others joining. Nonprofits flooded our inbox, pushing us to 500 users. A Forbes reporter interviewed me, the article calling ConnectSphere the future of civic tech. I was trending on Twitter, my name, alongside hashtags like "Back Tech for Good." It was surreal, my face on newsstands, my story out there. I wondered if my parents saw it, if just a temp stung them now. Part of me hoped it did. Part of me just wanted them to call. Back in Brooklyn, the momentum surged. We hired more staff, a sales lead, another developer, our loft office buzzing. We signed a deal with a national volunteer network, our biggest win yet. Tara got us into TechCrunch, and Sarah was pushing for a Series A, aiming for $10 million. I was flying between meetings, speaking at smaller conferences, my bridge keychain always in my pocket. I was 24, running a startup that mattered no longer. The girl who'd sobbed at graduation. I was someone who could stand on a stage, tell her story, and make the world listen. But the gala loomed in my mind. I hadn't gone choosing San Francisco, but Mom's text had mentioned another event, a corporate gala in Manhattan, hosted by Dad's law firm, where Claire and Nathan would be honored for their community impact. She'd assumed I'd attend, saying it's family. I hadn't replied, but the invite sat in my inbox, a pull to the past. ConnectSphere was invited to pitch at a major philanthropy summit the same weekend, a chance to land corporate partners. The choice was clear, but it wasn't easy. The summit was my future, the gala my wound. I chose the summit, emailing my acceptance, my heart heavy but resolute. The summit prep was intense. Rachel coached my pitch. Leo built a new demo. Tara planned a social campaign. We hit 700 users, including a corporate CSR program, their VP raving about our metrics. I was exhausted but alive, each win a brick in a foundation I'd built from nothing. I journaled late, writing about the gala, the fear of facing my family, the thrill of the summit. I wrote to myself, "You're not a temp, you're permanent." It felt like a vow. A new opportunity came unexpectedly. Elena's center was hosting a community gala, and she asked me to speak, honoring ConnectSphere's impact. It was the same night as my parents' event, a poetic clash. I said yes, knowing it was where I belonged. Elena's kids, Priya's cheers, Rachel's nod. They were my people, not the Westport crowd. I was ready to shine, not for my family, but for me. Have you ever had to choose your own light over someone else's shadow? I was doing that, my platform soaring my heart, steady, ready to claim my place. The San Francisco conference had been a rocket launch, propelling ConnectSphere and me into a new orbit. I was 24 back in Brooklyn, leading a startup that was no longer a scrappy dream, but a force with 700 users, a $2 million seed round, and a viral keynote that had put my name on the map. My mom's dismissal at my NYU graduation text, just a side thing, not a legacy, still stung a scar that fueled my drive to prove I was more than the invisible sibling, outshined by Claire's medical glory and Nathan's Wall Street triumphs. With Priya's fierce friendship, Elena's mentorship, and Rachel's strategic guidance, I was building a life that was mine, not theirs. I was Ava Reynolds, and I was ready to keep climbing, even as the pull of my family's upcoming Manhattan gala loomed like a storm on the horizon. Brooklyn was my home now, the gritty charm of its streets matching my stubborn heart. Our apartment with Priya was still a dive creaky, floors a leaky faucet, but it felt like a fortress filled with laughter and late-night coding sessions. ConnectSphere's office, a cramped loft with exposed brick, was alive with our team, Leo coding wizard, Tara marketing genius, Aisha design star, and new hires including a sales lead named Javier. We were a family celebrating 800 users, with dollar store decorations and Leo's terrible DJ skills. The platform was scaling fast with a national volunteer network on board and talks with a major CSR program at a Fortune 500 company. Sarah, our lead VC, was pushing for a $10 million Series A, her confidence in us like wind in our sails. The summit pitch was our next big leap. The Philanthropy Summit in DC was a high-stakes stage with corporate giants and foundation heads looking for impact-driven tech. Our slot was prime, a chance to land partnerships that could take ConnectSphere global. I spent weeks prepping Rachel, drilling my pitch until it was seamless. Leo building a demo that dazzled. Tara's campaign hyped our story. Elena's center featured in a video that got 50,000 views. We hit 900 users, including a chain of community centers in Chicago. Their director calling me a game changer. I was still living off savings and coffee, but the numbers, 50% growth, glowing testimonials felt like proof. I wasn't just a temp. The team was my backbone. Leo's pranks kept us laughing through stress. Aisha's designs gave the platform heart. Tara's energy was contagious, and Javier's charm closed deals. We'd stay late debating features over pizza, their belief in me a mirror reflecting a leader I was starting to recognize. But the loneliness crept in. I'd see families at Elena's center, parents cheering at kids' events, and ache for what I'd lost. I hadn't spoken to my parents in over a year. Mom's text about the Manhattan Gala Dad's law firm, honoring Claire and Nathan, sat unanswered. Dad was silent, Nathan and Claire distant stars in their own orbits. I'd scroll their social media, Claire's wedding plans, Nathan's finance awards, and feel like a stranger. I wanted to be past it, but the kid in me still hoped they'd see me. Elena sensed my quiet struggle. At her center, helping with a coding workshop, she pulled me aside. "You're carrying their baggage, Ava," she said, her eyes kind. "Let it go. You're enough without their applause." I knotted her bridge keychain in my pocket, but the hurt lingered. I journaled to untangle it, filling notebooks with the pain of being overlooked, the thrill of new users, the dream of a global connect sphere. Writing showed me the Ava I was becoming, resilient, bold, not the girl who'd sobbed at graduation. I was learning to trust her, and that was a quiet victory. The DC summit was electric. The venue was a grand hotel, all marble and chandeliers, packed with execs in power suits and philanthropists with deep pockets. I wore a tailored blazer, my hands sweaty as I waited backstage. The other presenters were heavyweights, CEOs, policy wonks, a Nobel laureate. I felt small, but Priya's text, "You're a boss," and Elena's voice memo, "Change the world, kid," were my armor. Rachel was there, her nod steadying me. When I took the stage, the lights were blinding the crowd a blur. "I'm Ava Reynolds. I began and I built Connect Sphere to connect the unseen, because I know what it's like to be one." I told Elena's story, the Chicago center's my own drive, not the family wounds, but the hunger to make a difference. I showed the demo 900 users, 60% growth, real impact. I ended with, "This isn't just tech, it's a movement for those who've been left behind." The applause was deafening, a standing ovation. I walked off stage, legs shaking, and Rachel hugged me. "You nailed it," she said. Javier, watching the livestream, texted, "We're going viral." 3 corporates approached a bank, a tech giant, a retail chain wanting partnerships. A foundation offered a $1 million grant. My inbox exploded with media requests, nonprofits, and VCs. The Forbes reporter from San Francisco wrote a follow-up calling me the face of tech for good. I was trending again, my keynote clip hitting 1 million views. I was flying, but the gala was a shadow. I'd chosen the summit, but Mom's "It's Family" text echoed a reminder of the confrontation waiting. Back in Brooklyn, the wins piled up. We signed 2 corporate partnerships, pushing us to 1,200 users. The grant let us hire more staff, a data analyst, another developer, our loft office bursting. Sarah closed the Series A at $12 million, a number that made my head spin. We opened a small office in DC, Terra leading the charge. TechCrunch named us a startup to watch my face on their site. I was speaking at conferences weekly, my bridge keychain in my pocket, Elena's words in my heart. I was 24, running a company that was changing lives, no longer the girl who'd cried at graduation. I was a leader, and the world was listening. But the gala was unavoidable. Mom called a rare voicemail. "We're expecting you, Ava. It's important." I didn't call back, but the event was in Manhattan, too close to ignore. Dad's firm was honoring Claire and Nathan for their community impact, a laughable stretch, given their focus on personal glory. Connect Sphere was invited to a local tech gala the same night, hosted by a major foundation where I'd be a featured speaker. I chose the tech gala, knowing it was my stage, not theirs. But I couldn't shake the pull of facing my family, of showing them the Ava they'd dismissed. I journaled about it, writing, "I'm not a temp, I'm permanent. They need to see it." The tech gala prep was intense. Rachel coached my speech, a blend of Connect Sphere's impact and my story. Leo built a new demo, Tara planned a live campaign, and Aisha designed stunning visuals. We hit 1,500 users, including a global NGO, their director calling me inspirational. I was exhausted but alive, each milestone a defiance of my family's doubts. Elena's community gala was a warm-up, my speech there earning tears and cheers. "You're our hero," a kid told me, and I cried, thinking of the Ava who'd needed to hear that. I was ready for the tech gala, ready to shine, but the Manhattan event loomed a chance to face my past. A new opportunity came unexpectedly. A major tech awards show in Chicago invited ConnectSphere for Social Impact Startup of the Year. It was televised, a red carpet affair, and I'd be up against polished competitors. I accepted, my heart racing. This was a chance to cement our place. Priya and Elena insisted on coming, booking flights to cheer me on. The awards were after the gala, but the timing felt fated, a stage to show the world who I was. I was balancing DC partnerships, Chicago prep, and the gala speech, my life a high-wire act. But I was steady, my team behind me, my vision clear. I journaled one night, writing to myself, "You're enough. You always were." I didn't need my parents' pride, but I wanted to face them, not as the wounded kid, but as Ava Reynolds, CEO, changemaker star. The tech gala would be my moment, and if they were there, they'd see it. If not, I'd shine anyway. Have you ever stood on the edge of proving yourself, knowing it's for you? Not them. I was there, my platform soaring, my heart ready, about to take the stage. The DC summit had been a triumph, launching ConnectSphere into a new stratosphere with 1,500 users, corporate partnerships, and a $12 million Series A round. I was 24, leading a Brooklyn startup that was reshaping how nonprofits connected with volunteers, my name, now synonymous with tech for good. My mom's dismissal at my NYU graduation text, just a side thing, not a legacy, was a scar that fueled my rise, a defiance against being the invisible sibling, outshined by Claire's medical acclaim and Nathan's Wall Street success. With Priya's fierce friendship, Elena's mentorship, Rachel's strategic brilliance, and my team's unwavering support, I was building a life that was mine. I was Ava Reynolds, and as I prepared for the tech gala in Manhattan, I knew it was my stage, not my parents' corporate event, where I'd been invited but dismissed as just a temp. Brooklyn was my heartbeat, our loft office a hive of energy. With Leo coding furiously, Tara crafting viral campaigns, Aisha designing stunning visuals, and Javier closing deals, we hit 2,000 users, including a global education NGO, their director calling ConnectSphere a lifeline for our programs. The Chicago Tech Awards loomed, a televised gala where we were nominated for Social Impact Startup of the Year, a chance to cement our place. But the Manhattan Tech Gala was my immediate focus, a high-profile event hosted by a major foundation where I'd speak about ConnectSphere's impact. It was the same night as my parents' event, Dad's law firm honoring Claire and Nathan, and I'd chosen my stage over theirs. The decision felt right, but the prospect of facing them, knowing they'd be in the same city in Neta, stirred a mix of nerves and resolve. The tech gala prep was relentless. Rachel coached my speech, a blend of ConnectSphere's data, 200 users, 70% growth, and my story of building from nothing. Leo built a demo that dazzled Tara, planned a live-streamed campaign, and Aisha's visuals made our mission pop. Priya practiced with me in our apartment filming until my delivery was flawless. "You're gonna own that room," she said, grinning. Elena sent a care package. Cookies, a note saying, "You're my hero." I was exhausted but electric, each rehearsal a step toward claiming my place. We signed a deal with a major bank's CSR program, pushing us to 2,500 users, and Sarah RVC was talking Series B, aiming for 30 million. The platform was a movement, and I was its voice. My team was my soul. Leo's humor kept us grounded. Aisha's creativity inspired us. Tara's fire drove us. And Javier's charm sealed partnerships. We'd stay late, debating features over takeout, their laughter a balm for my stress. They called me boss with a wink, but I felt like their sister, their faith in me a mirror reflecting a leader I was growing into. But the loneliness lingered. I hadn't spoken to my family in over a year. Mom's voicemail about the gala. "We're expecting you." Ava went unanswered. Dad was silent, Nathan and Claire distant. I'd see their lives online. Claire's wedding prep, Nathan's finance awards, and feel like a ghost. I wanted to be beyond it, but the kid in me still craved their eyes on me, not as a temp, but as a star. Elena's wisdom kept me steady. At her center teaching kids to code, she saw my quiet ache. "You don't need their spotlight, Ava," she said, handing me a coffee. "You're your own." I knotted her bridge keychain in my pocket, but the hurt was there. I journaled to untangle it, filling pages with the pain of being dismissed, the thrill of our growth, the dream of a global connect sphere. Writing showed me the Ava I was becoming, bold, unbreakable, not the girl who'd cried at graduation. I was learning to love her, a quiet transformation that felt like coming home. The Manhattan Tech Gala was a glittering affair, held in a midtown ballroom with chandeliers and a buzz of influence. I arrived early, my navy dress bought with my first big paycheck, feeling like armor. Priya and Elena were there. Priya snapping selfies, Elena charming everyone with her warmth. Backstage, I paced my note cards, warned the crowd's hum filtering through. The other speakers were titans, CEOs, philanthropists, a senator. I felt small, but Rachel's nod and Priya's, "You got this," were my anchors. I knew my parents were across town at Dad's firm's gala, likely dismissing me as just a temp. The thought stung, but it also lit a fire. I was here to shine for me, for my team, for every kid like me who'd been overlooked. When my name was called, I stepped onto the stage, the lights blinding the crowd, a sea of faces. "I'm Ava Reynolds," I began, "and I built ConnectSphere because I know what it's like to feel invisible." I told Elena's story, the NGO's my own, not the family wounds, but the hunger to connect the unseen. I showed the demo to 500 users 80% growth stories of volunteers transforming lives. My voice was strong, the nerves gone. I ended with, "This isn't just tech, it's a promise everyone matters." The applause was thunderous, a standing ovation. I walked off stage, legs shaking, and Priya tackled me in a hug. Elna was crying, saying, "That's my Ava." Rachel grinned, "You're unstoppable." The room buzzed, foundation heads, corporates, media, wanting interviews. My keynote was live-streamed, trending with Goeyer's Connect Sphere. The gala was a launchpad. We landed a $5 million partnership with a tech giant, pushing us to 3,000 users. A major foundation doubled their grant, and Sarah closed the Series B at $35 million. Forbes did a cover story calling me the heart of tech for good. I was trending globally, my face on newsstands, my story everywhere. I wondered if my parents saw it, if just a temp hit them now. Part of me hoped it did, part of me just wanted peace. The Chicago Awards were next, a red carpet spectacle. Priya and Elena flew in, Priya in a sparkly dress, Elena beaming. We didn't win, but the exposure was massive, our user count spiking to 3,500. I spoke at the ceremony, thanking my team, Elena, Priya, and the nonprofits we served. The clip went viral, 2 million views, and I was invited to keynote at a UN Tech Summit. I was 24, running a global movement, no longer the girl who'd sobbed at graduation. I was a CEO, and the world knew it. But my family was a shadow. The Manhattan Gala had been across town, and I'd heard through a cousin they'd been there, Mom dismissing me as busy with her little app. I hadn't gone, but the Tech Gala's livestream had reached their circles. A friend of Dad's emailed saying, "Your mom was stunned, Ava. They didn't know." I didn't reply. But the news stirred something, anger, yes, but also a need to face them, not to win, but to close a chapter. I journaled about it, writing, "I'm not a temp, I'm permanent. They need to see it, but I don't need their pride." A new milestone came. ConnectSphere hit 4,000 users with offices in Brooklyn, D.C., and a new one in San Francisco. We hired 20 more staff, Tara leading marketing, Leo running tech. I was on planes, constantly speaking, at summits meeting NGOs, my bridge keychain always with me. I was named to Forbes's a 30 under 30, my face on billboards. Each win was a brick in a foundation I'd built from pain. but the confrontation was coming. Mom sent a text, "Saw your speech, Ava. Can we talk?" I didn't answer, but I knew I'd see them soon, not as the wounded kid, but as Ava Reynolds' CEO star. I started a scholarship fund, the Elena Bridge Fund, for kids in tech from overlooked places. At the launch, I gave Elena a bridge-shaped pendant saying, "For my family." She cried, and so did I. I was ready to face my past, not for their approval, but for my peace. The UN summit was next, a global stage, but my heart was set on a smaller one. Wherever I'd meet my family, I'd be ready to shine. Have you ever built something so big it outgrew your pain? I was doing that, my platform a movement, my heart a light ready to take the stage again. The Manhattan Tech Gala had been a seismic moment, my speech electrifying the room and catapulting ConnectSphere to 4,000 users, with a $35 million Series B and global recognition. I was 24, a Brooklyn-based CEO, whose name was synonymous with tech for good my face, on Forbes' 30 Under 30 and my platform a movement. My mom's dismissal at my NYU graduation text, just a side thing, not a legacy, was the wound that had fueled my rise, a defiance against being the invisible sibling, overshadowed by Claire's medical triumphs and Nathan's Wall Street glory. With Priya's fierce friendship, Elena's mentorship, Rachel's strategic genius, and my team's unwavering support, I'd built a life that was mine. I was Ava Reynolds, and as I prepared for the UN Tech Summit, I knew a confrontation with my family was inevitable. Not at their gala, but on my terms where I'd shine. As the CEO they'd called just Temp. The weeks after the gala were a whirlwind. ConnectSphere's Brooklyn office was a hive with Leo leading tech, Tara driving marketing, Aisha crafting visuals, and Javier sealing partnerships. We hit 5,000 users, including a UN-affiliated NGO, their director calling our platform a global blueprint. The Series B let us open a San Francisco office, hire 30 more staff, and plan an international expansion. Sarah RVC was eyeing a Series C, talking IPO dreams that made my head spin. I was speaking at conferences weekly from London to Singapore, my bridge keychain Elena's gift in my pocket. The Chicago Awards, though we didn't win, had spiked our users to $6,000, and my UN Summit keynote was set to reach millions. I was 24, no longer the girl who'd cried at graduation, but a leader whose story was changing lives. My team was my heart. Leo's pranks, Aisha's artistry, Tara's fire, and Javier's charm made our loft a home, their belief in me, a mirror reflecting a CEO I was embracing. We celebrated 5,500 users with a rooftop party. Brooklyn's skyline glittering their laughter louder than any award. But the loneliness lingered. I hadn't spoken to my family in over a year. Mom's text, "Saw your speech. Ava, can we talk?" went unanswered. Dad was silent, Nathan and Claire distant. I'd see their lives online, Claire's wedding, Nathan's finance accolades, and feel like an exile. Mom's just a temp at the gala had reached me through a cousin, a sting that hardened my resolve. I didn't need their pride, but I wanted to face them, not to win, but to close the wound. Elena's wisdom was my anchor. At her center, helping with a coding camp, she saw my quiet struggle. "You're not their shadow, Ava," she said, her eyes warm. "You're your own sun." I nodded, her bridge keychain grounding me, but the ache was there. I journaled to process it, filling notebooks with the pain of being dismissed, the thrill of our growth, the dream of a global ConnectSphere. Writing showed me the Ava I'd become, unbreakable, radiant. Not the girl who'd sobbed at graduation. I was learning to love her, a transformation that felt like freedom. The UN Summit was in New York, a global stage at a gleaming Midtown conference center. I was keynoting tech for a connected world, a chance to showcase ConnectSphere to world leaders, NGOs, and media. Rachel coached my speech, blending our 6,500 users and 80% growth with my story of building from nothing. Leo's demo was stunning, Tara's campaign went viral, and Aisha's visuals were art. Priya and Elena were coming, Priya promising to livestream Elena, baking cookies for the team. I was nervous but ready. My navy dress now my signature, feeling like a second skin. The summit was days after my parents' corporate gala, which I'd skipped, but I knew they'd hear about this. Their World Westport's elite, Dad's firm, overlapped with the summit's attendees, and my keynote would be impossible to ignore. The summit was a dream. The center buzzed with diplomats, CEOs, and activists, the air thick with possibility. Backstage, I paced my note cards, warned the crowd's hum filtering through. The other speakers were legends, a Nobel winner, a tech mogul, a UN official. I felt small, but Priya's text, "Slay Queen and Elena's call, you're my star, were my armor." Rachel's nod was steady. "This is your world now." When I stepped onto the stage, the lights were blinding, the crowd vast. "I'm Ava Reynolds," I began, "and I built ConnectSphere because I know what it's like to be unseen." I told Elena's story, the UN NGO's my own, not the family pain, but the drive to connect, the overlooked. I showed the demo 6 to 500 users, global impact, lives changed. I ended with, "This isn't tech, it's a promise, no one is invisible." The applause was a roar, a standing ovation. I walked off stage, legs trembling, and Priya tackled me in a hug. Elena crying, Rachel grinning. The room swarmed UN officials, corporates, media wanting interviews. My keynote was live-streamed, trending globally with the Jugger ConnectSphere 5 million views. A UN agency offered a $10 million partnership, and 2 VCs joined Sarah for a Series C, aiming for $100 million. Forbes called me the future of impact tech. I was trending everywhere my face. On screens, my story unstoppable. I knew my parents would hear. Dad's firm had UN clients, Westport's elite watched the summit. Just a Temp was a lie they couldn't ignore. The confrontation came sooner than I'd planned. A week later, at a New York Tech Awards gala, where ConnectSphere was up for Startup of the Year, I saw them. The event was at a Manhattan ballroom, glittering, and packed, my team by my side. I was in my navy dress bridge keychain, in my clutch, ready to speak. Then I spotted Mom, Dad, Claire, and Nathan in the crowd, invited through Dad's firm, which sponsored the event. My stomach dropped. Priya grabbed my hand, whispering, "You're the star here." Elena's eyes were fierce. "Show them." I nodded, heart racing, knowing this was the moment. The ceremony was a blur, our nomination announced to cheers. We won, and I was called to the stage, the glass trophy heavy in my hands. The crowd was electric, cameras flashing, my team whooping. I took the mic, my voice steady. "I'm Ava Reynolds, CEO of ConnectSphere." I began, my eyes finding my family. I built this for the unseen because I was one. I thanked Elena, Priya, my team, and shared our mission. 7,000 users, global reach, lives changed. Then I paused, looking at Mom. "Some called me just a temp," I said, "but I'm permanent. This is my legacy." The crowd roared a standing ovation. Mom's face was pale. Dad's eyes down, Claire and Nathan stunned. I walked off stage, head high, Priya and Elena, hugging me, tears in their eyes. Backstage, my family approached. Mom's voice trembled. "Ava, we didn't know. We're proud." Dad cleared his throat, saying, "You've done well, kid." Claire hugged me, whispering, "I'm sorry." Nathan nodded, awkward but genuine. I looked at them, the family I'd loved and lost, and felt a mix of anger and release. "I needed you to see me." Then I said, voice calm, "Not now." Mom's eyes welled. Dad flinched, but I wasn't cruel. I was honest. "I'm happy," I said, "but I built this without you." I walked away, my team waiting, their cheers louder than any apology. The awards gala was a launch pad. We hit 8,000 users, signed the UN deal, and opened a London office. I was keynoting globally, my story, a beacon for the overlooked. I journaled that night, writing, "I'm not a temp. I'm Ava, and I'm enough." My family's words couldn't hurt me anymore. I had Priya's fire, Elena's love, my team's loyalty, and a platform changing the world. Have you ever faced the people who doubted you and found you didn't need their light? I did on that stage, and it was my brightest moment yet. Standing on that awards gala stage, the glass trophy gleaming in my hands, I felt like I'd claimed a piece of myself that my family had never seen. I was 24, CEO of ConnectSphere, a Brooklyn-based startup with 8,000 users, a $35 million Series B, and a global mission to connect nonprofits with volunteers. My mom's dismissal at my NYU graduation text, just a side thing, not a legacy, had been the wound that propelled me here, a defiance against being the invisible sibling, eclipsed by Claire's medical triumphs and Nathan's Wall Street success. With Priya's fierce friendship, Elena's mentorship, Rachel's strategic genius, and my team's unwavering support, I'd built a life that was mine. The UN Summit keynote, the awards win, and my speech calling out just a temp had shaken my family. Their stunned faces in the crowd, a victory I hadn't sought but felt deeply. I was Ava Reynolds, and as I stepped off that stage, I knew I was free not from them, but from needing their validation. The ballroom buzzed as I rejoined my team. Priya tackling me in a hug, Elena's eyes shining with pride, Leo and Tara cheering like I'd won an Oscar. The after-party was a blur of toasts and laughter, my trophy passed around like a talisman. Javier landed a handshake deal with a corporate VP, Aisha's visuals played on loop, and Sarah RVC whispered, "This is just the start, Ava." I was trending globally, Jugger ConnectSphere hitting 10 million mentions. My keynote clips racking up views. Forbes called wanting a cover story, and a Netflix producer pitched a documentary. I was 24, living a dream I'd coded from pain, my bridge keychain Elena's gift in my clutch. A reminder of the bridges I'd built. Back in Brooklyn, the momentum didn't stop. ConnectSphere hit 10,000 users, with the UN partnership bringing global NGOs on board. We opened offices in London, and Delhi hired 50 more staff and planned a mobile app launch. Sarah closed a Series C at a $100 million talk of an IPO now serious. I was keynoting at Summit's Davos TED, a UN General Assembly side event, my story of rising from the unseen resonating worldwide. The Elena Bridge Fund, my scholarship for kids in tech, awarded its first grants, and I cried reading their thank you letters. My team was my heart, Leo's pranks, Tara's fire, Aisha's art, Javier's charm. Our loft office, a home where I was seen, not dismissed, but my family's confrontation lingered. Mom's trembling, "We're proud," Dad's gruff, "You've done well." Claire's apology, Nathan's nod, they were real but too late. I'd walked away not cruelly, but honestly saying, "I needed you then, not now." They reached out after Mom texting, "Can we meet Ava? We're sorry." Dad emailed stiff but sincere, mentioning my UN speech. Claire called, leaving a voicemail about wanting to reconnect. Nathan sent a bottle of champagne with a note, "You're incredible, sis." I saved their messages, but didn't reply. I wasn't angry, but I wasn't ready to mend. I'd built my world without them, and I needed to protect that Ava, the one who'd fought alone. Elena helped me navigate it. At her center sorting donated laptops, she said, "You don't owe them forgiveness, Ava, but you owe yourself peace." I nodded, her bridge keychain in my pocket, and journaled that night, writing to my family without sending it. I thanked them for the good moments, Mom's rare bedtime stories, Dad's silly lawyer tales, Claire and Nathan's childhood pranks. I told them how their dismissal had hurt, how it had shaped me, how I'd grown beyond it. I wrote, "I forgive you for me, not you." It was a release, a letting go of the weight I'd carried. I didn't need their pride to be whole. I had Elena's love, Priya's fire, my team's loyalty, and ConnectSphere's impact. The world kept calling. I moved to a small Brooklyn apartment, my own space with a skylight, for stargazing my awards on a shelf. I hung a photo of Elena's kids, a painting Aisha made, and Priya's sticky note, "You're a queen." I was 25, balancing global keynotes, board meetings, and painting. Yes, painting, a hobby I'd picked up to stay grounded. My canvases full of bridges and stars. The Anna Harper Gallery. A nod to my dream of impact was in planning a space for young tech dreamers to showcase their work. I funded it with my speaking fees, naming it after Elena's middle name, a surprise I'd reveal at its launch. my family reached out again, inviting me to Claire's wedding. I went not for them, but for me to see if we could start anew. It was in Westport, a lavish affair, and I arrived in my navy dress bridge keychain in my purse. Mom hugged me, tears in her eyes, saying, "We were wrong, Ava." Dad pulled me aside, his voice rough. "I'm sorry, kid. You're a star." Claire and Nathan were warmer, sharing stories like we were kids again. I listened, smiled, but kept my distance. I'm happy I told them, but I'm my own family now. They nodded, and we danced a tentative bridge, not fully rebuilt, but there. I left early, Priya, waiting in Brooklyn with wine and a rom-com, my real home. ConnectSphere was a global force at 15,000 users, with offices in 5 cities and a mobile app topping charts. I was named to Time's 100 Most Influential, my face on billboards, my story in classrooms. The Elena Bridge Fund grew, supporting 100 kids, and I mentored them, seeing myself in their hungry eyes. I painted a mural at Elena's center, a bridge under stars, dedicating it to her. "For my family," I said, and she cried, her pendant, my gift, gleaming. I was 25, living a life I'd fought for each step, a line of code in a program I was still writing. I journaled every night, writing to the Ava who'd cried at graduation. "You were enough then. You're enough now." I forgave my family, not for them, but for me, letting go of the need to prove anything. I kept the bridge keychain on my desk, a symbol of the connections I'd built, Elena, Priya, my team, the world. I started a new painting, a single bridge against a dawn sky, calling it permanent. It was for me, for every woman told she was temporary, for every fight that felt impossible. I was Ava Reynolds, and I was permanent. The future was open, a canvas for my dreams. I'd keynote at the UN again, launch the Anna Harper Gallery, mentor more kids. I'd paint lead love on my terms in my world. I'd build a family, not of blood, but of heart, Priya, Elena, my team, and the countless others who saw me. My worth didn't depend on my parents' validation or anyone's. It was in the bridges I built, the lives I touched, the star I'd become. I was 25, just beginning, and the world was mine to connect. Have you ever found your worth in the light you made yourself? I did, and it's a legacy I'll carry forever. You're permanent too. Shine not for them, but for you.